Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner and today we are recapping the North America playoffs for stage number 1 2024 season. M80 versus SSG is our first matchup. Keep in mind we were playing all best of ones before, but now we're playing all best of threes. So this is where the map pools really come out to play and we see a lot more meaningful results. I guess not only in that way that we're seeing the best of threes, but also these are more meaningful. Before you really just needed top 6 to put yourself in a good position. Obviously you want a top 2 for that bye, but top 6 would suffice. And then that's what we're seeing here is all of the top 6 teams from the round robin. So M80 up against Space Station, it was a 2-0 in favor of M80, and this isn't the first time that M80 destroyed Space Station. Very different rosters, I guess, here, but Space Station and M80, one of the 2 stages last year, I don't remember if it was stage 1 or 2, M80, they like 7-4, 7-0'd or something like that. One of them was 7-0, the other one was not close. This is slightly closer, 7-3, 7-3, but yeah, Space Station got absolutely mobbed. It was, you know, they won 6 out of the 20 rounds played, just not a great look for Space Station. And I think it is a combination both of M80 being really good and SSG being not as good as they could be, should be, whatever you want to say, as people expected them to be. And Citizen went insane. The first map he dropped like 15, maybe more than that kills, and that means if he got 15, he still got like 12 in the second one. He was going insane in the first map, and he did really well in the series overall. M80 pretty well dominated, I guess. Well, only +4 overall if you ignore Noodle. These 3 players all did very well on the entry. J90 put up a decent fight, but everybody else getting destroyed. Fultz having the worst showing of all. He was having a decent number of good games leading up to this. It was Iconic and Forest really struggling, and I mean, they're not, I guess they are better, but they're not that much better. Still not having great games. And Ashen, who is really the star of the show for Space Station this stage, also not putting up a stellar performance. 5-4 on entry is nice though. And I think that covers this one. We'll move on to the second matchup, which was Dark Zero versus Luminosity. This was supposed to happen on the first day, on Friday, along with the match we just saw, the M80 Space Station game. But because of server issues or something, they did an update. I don't know, maybe it's Ubisoft's fault, maybe it's not. They pushed it to the next day, and that means that the winner of this has to wait some number of hours and then later that day play in another game with the major spot on the line. And if they lose that one, they do still get one more chance, which we'll see in another match. But I mean, pretty brutal that their game got pushed and then they couldn't reschedule the other game. Yeah, I don't know, just not great circumstances for whoever would go on to win this one. Obviously, it was Dark Zero here in 2-0 fashion. Luminosity put up a lot better fight than Space Station again did against M80. 15 rounds on Nighthaven Labs, 12 rounds on Border, so I mean, it couldn't have been that much closer. It could have gone 3 maps, I guess, but the 2 maps that we did see were extremely competitive. So good to see that out of LG. Also nice to see, I guess, Dark Zero bounce back. They were pretty bad for quite a while in the group stage, and then they got it together just enough at the end to make it into the playoffs, and now they're, you know, they win this and they advance to a major qualification game. If they lose that, they still have another major qualification game, and I guess if they lose that, they still have the LCQ. So they're putting themselves in, you know, a perfect situation. It's exactly where you want to be, is in those is winning your first round of playoffs if you didn't get the bye, like Beast Coast and Oxygen did. And Nafe is the star of the show once again. This guy's been so good for Dark Zero in general, and it almost seems like he came out of nowhere, right? He was, I don't want to say like a no-name player, but people didn't have the highest expectations for him when he joined M&M, and then he started turning into one of their star players. You know, he was putting up really consistent numbers for a while, and then M&M stopped being a thing. He joined Dark Zero, and he's been great for them since he joined. He was really good at SI. He's been great this stage. He's one of the top-rated players this stage, and whether his teammates are doing good, whether the team's doing good, he's pretty much always doing good. So a bright light maybe when they needed him most. Pambazoo also showing up here. He hasn't been abysmal this stage, but I do think that you would have liked to have seen better performance from Pambazoo in the stage. And yeah, this is the stuff you'd like to see. 7-1 on entry is killer. Canadian with a pretty brutal 1-6, but yeah, Pambazoo and Nafe getting in there and getting the entries in a lot of the rounds. And then on Luminosity, Eddie and Kickstro putting up decent showings, but the other 3 players not showing up so well. and we will move on to the next game. So this is still, so that was the first game on Saturday. This is the second game, and this is for major qualification. If you win this, you qualify to the major. You still have one more game to play for seeding and SI points and money, but this is the one you really want to win. If you lose, you do get another chance, and then even another chance, I guess, after that. But you do really want to win here at this point. If you keep losing, you're not going to make the major, but if you win, you will. So finally, we see 3 maps. M80 take on Oxygen, and this was a rematch. They played in the, I guess, the last day, right? And it was pretty likely that the winner of this would have been first place, but because we saw the exact result of, what was it, M80 winning in overtime, then Beast Coast was able to surpass both these teams rather than just one. So in that way, unfortunate for M80, because they did have the most sheer number of wins. They just didn't put together the most points. They were tied on points with Beast Coast and Oxygen, and then the tie breaks went to the other teams. But M80 battled their way back to where they would have been had they placed first or second, and they take them down. M80 qualifies for the major. We'll see if M80 continues to be a force regionally and terrible internationally like the previous iteration. They were always pretty solid, you know, playing within North America, and then they completely disappeared when they went to play internationally. And this was, you know, like not a super close series. We didn't see any overtime, and even the, well, okay, what do we have here? Yeah, I guess Oxygen got M80 got 4 rounds in the map they lost, and Oxygen got 5 rounds and 2 rounds in the map they lost. So, you know, it was fairly competitive. We didn't see super close maps. I guess these two are pretty similar, but then Oxygen went out a little bit sad on Nighthaven Labs, didn't put up a very good showing. And we've seen a lot of teams go to Nighthaven Labs and really regret it. And yeah, we see that here once again. DS Lucas and Newers, the 2 best players for Oxygen, as we've seen pretty consistently throughout the stage. I think Gomez has also been pretty reasonable, but I think those were probably their 2 best players overall. Dream and Yaga not having a great stage, and it felt like maybe they didn't get hard carried, but overall it did feel a little bit like they were getting carried over the line by the other players. And finally, when push came to shove, they were not able to shore up their performances, and I think it really cost them. Spoit continues to be stellar, you know, plus 10 here. He was definitely the best player in all of NA for this stage. And Citizen, who was a little bit lukewarm during the stage, he really came to life during the playoffs. He had that phenomenal game versus SSG. He has another phenomenal game here. And Noodle's been kind of hit or miss. I think a little bit more miss, but he's at least had some impactful moments. He had a reasonable game here, same thing as Cameraman. Kind of a bad game from Kino, and that was something we came to expect from Kino for a long time, and this stage he had a lot of good showings, so maybe it's back to be it's to the point where a performance like this is surprising. He is, you know, a hard support player, so from time to time you can probably anticipating him putting up a, you know, 0.8 rating or whatever. I wouldn't knock him too hard. The team, they didn't get a decisive win. You know, they could have won it in 2, I suppose, but they still got a fairly solid win over Oxygen here. And then moving on to Beast Coast versus Dark Zero. So this is still on Saturday. So again, Dark Zero had to play that first game versus Luminosity, and then there was that game we just talked about, and then this game however many hours later. So 2 best of 3s in one day, which isn't unheard of. You know, that happens at events and whatnot, but when that wasn't the original intention, it is pretty brutal. So Beast Coast get to come into this fresh, and Dark Zero have to come in a little bit sleepy. And sometimes it can be a benefit to play multiple matches, you know, if you consider Luminosity to be a really good scrim, if you want to call it that way. But I think it's especially brutal because they didn't get to play them right before. There was an entire match between, so they got hot and then they cooled down and they have to heat up again, whereas if their match was right before this and then they got to come into this hot, could have been an advantage. I think it's pretty much a strict disadvantage because of the way it played out. And Beast Coast, who went from 0-3 all the way up, they snuck into that first place position in the round robin, and they qualify for the major. This is the only one they had to win because they made top 2, and yeah, they send Dark Zero to the next game to try again. But yeah, Beast Coast get the win. It was looking a little bit dangerous at first because Beast Coast did go down 1-5, and then they won 6 in a row. They won all of their defenses. They were pretty convincing overall. There was 1 or 2 that were pretty close. I think Gaveni had to get a 1v3 clutch here. This came down to a 1v1, but a lot of these were kind of blowout rounds. So they did exactly what needed to be done to win in regulation. They got their 1 attack, and then they did not drop a single defense. And we've seen a lot of that from Consulate, where we've seen several. That's at least the second, if not like the third or fourth 6-0 half, and I guess it wasn't a 6-0 start, but they got their 6 in the second half of the game. Then we go to Clubhouse, and it's a little bit less close than the first one. We see Dark Zero take it in 11 rounds, and then Border even a little bit less close. Beast Coast takes it down in 10 rounds, and they're looking pretty solid. I think that they sort of proved at least the willingness, Beast Coast did, to play all of the maps in the round robin, because over the course of their eight games, right, they played 7 different maps, and they did only win like 3 or 4 of them because they lost their first handful of maps, but still they played all of them. You know, they're willing to play all of them, and I think that sort of it reflected pretty well here. And looking at the stats for the game, Gunner came alive. Gunner, I think he was on Sonic's last stage, right? And I think they were the first place team. So back to back, or I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that in just a second. This was not the game for first place, but Gunner goes crazy. 41 and 20 is like incredible stuff. You know, maybe if some of the other matches went to three maps rather than just 2, we could have seen some similar numbers, but I think this is the most kills we've seen thus far in a single match in the playoffs. 6 and 2 on entry, just great stuff from him. Spirit's struggling a little bit here, but everybody else putting up respectable to very good numbers. And then over on Dark Zero, actually not a single positive rating in sight. NJR barely goes even. You know, this does not look, just looking at the numbers, this does not look very close. It doesn't look like it went 3 close-ish maps, right? This looks like Beast Coast domination, and I do think that was reflected in a lot of the rounds. Maybe Dark Zero won some close rounds, Beast Coast won a lot more blowout rounds. I think that's maybe partially responsible for the numbers looking the way that they do. On entry, it was actually very similar, and I think Dark Zero were +1 overall, so they were just that slight bit better, but Beast Coast, ignoring the entry, were just better overall. And we will move on to the next game. So that was the final game of Saturday. Now we're on to Sunday. So this game, loser goes to the LCQ. They have to play through, 3 rounds. They have to win 3 matches in order to make the major. Winner, they go to the major. And because they restructured it for the big regions, so I think last stage it was the top 2 teams from NA, EU, Brazil got to go into phase number 2, but now it's the top 3 teams. So this game is still to go to phase number 1. Only the LCQ team, or excuse me, this game will take you to phase number 2, just like the other 2 qualification spots that were just claimed by Beast Coast and M80. So only the LCQ team has to play through the first phase with the other, minor region teams and the LCQ team from Brazil and Europe. So yeah, Dark Zero take it convincingly. Oxygen, they were off to such a hot start. They were like 5-0. They won 5, and I think they're all in regulation. Dark Zero were just absolutely floundering. They had to make a massive recovery, and they show up in playoffs. Oxygen get absolutely smoked here. They win all of 4 rounds, like just not close at all. Even a bigger beatdown than we saw given to SSG by M80. And Diaz, once again the best player on Oxygen, only dying 8 times I kind of feel like this is an error. There's like no way, right? He only died 8. I wonder if that's an error. I don't know. Let me know if he somehow only died 8 times, even though they lost 14 rounds. That seems like impossible. But Diaz Lucas does be staying alive. I don't know. Let me know if you think that's an error. But Dream, Gomez, Newers, they played relatively well. But Yaga, once again, on the bottom here, he absolutely disappeared in playoffs. He was one of the best, if not just the best players overall all year within the region for NA. And then he went back to M80 to play SI, did not play well, comes back to Oxygen, and now he's, like the worst player on the team. This is tough to see. And then Nafe once again on top for Dark Zero, and then we see a good showing by Bolo, by NJR, and good by Kamazu, and then not so good by Canadian, but oh well, the rest of the team is showing up to make up for his slightly lackluster numbers. And yeah, that is Dark Zero to the major along with Beast Coast and M80. Oxygen has to go duke it out with the likes of Sonics and Wildcard and Space Station and Luminosity, as well as some teams from the open quals. And maybe we'll see that in a minute. But we have 2 more games to talk about, so let's see. This game, again, is not for major qualification. Both these teams are definitely going to the major already at this point. It is for quite a bit of money. I think first place gets like over twice as much as second place. We'll see it on Liquipedia in a few moments. But also for some SI points, and then also for seeding, which might not end up mattering at all. It's still going to put you into phase number 2 regardless, but maybe you'll play some in theory weaker teams. So you want to win this mostly for, I guess probably mostly for the money and the SI points and the glory, whatever. I don't know. These certainly you don't play Siege to make a lot of money. Maybe a handful of players do make a lot, but I don't think it's terribly lucrative these days. Anyways, Beast Coast take it down in 2. I was surprised. I would have thought this went all 3. I mean, if I did predict, I might have even I probably would have gone Beast Coast because I definitely wanted them to win. Come playoffs time, I stopped making predictions and I just rooted for the teams that I wanted to win. Certainly wanted to see the Beast Coast victory. So not only were they #1 in the round robins, but they end up first place overall after the playoffs. And we see a 7-3 on Clubhouse, and so a little bit of redemption for losing Clubhouse against Dark Zero. And then we see an 8-6 on Nighthaven Labs. And Kino, best player on M80. Spoit, still reasonable as well, he was actually a lot more than reasonable throughout the stage, but at least reasonable here. And then everybody else getting kind of mopped on M80. Finally, Citizen does not have a phenomenal game in the playoffs. And over on Beast Coast, Gunner doesn't pop off like he did before, but everybody else does. Spirits goes +5, Hot and Cold and Diffuser together go +5. Gaveni +8 with, I think some big plays. I thought he maybe had clutches, but I guess not. I guess Hot and Cold and Diffuser had a few. Kino with 3 clutches though, and we'll see in a moment that this puts him on the most clutches in the league, but I guess a little bit inflated because I think he ends up with 6, so half of them coming in this game and they don't even win this game. So had Kino not clutched out these rounds, this would have been a lot less close, right? They won 9 rounds and 3 of those 9 rounds were 1v-X'd by Kino. Maybe they were 1v1s, I don't know what they were, but still. He pulled out the 1v whatever. And finally, we have Space Station versus LG. So this was played, was this yesterday? Yeah, this was pushed to like Monday or something, right? And this was not played on the mainstream. It was community casted by a few different people. And this wasn't for a whole lot. This was for like seeding, basically. I think a little bit of money on the line, like 5 SI points, but mostly an irrelevant game, honestly. I don't really fault anybody for not taking this one too seriously. Maybe you think it's concerning that Space Station lost this one. Maybe you don't, because again, they weren't playing for a whole lot. You might as well not pull out all the stops because this doesn't really affect you too much. It was still close though. They could have won it in 2 had they just won round 14 or 15 because they were the team. They went up 7-6. I think they did have to push overtime. They were down 5-6, but then they went up 7-6, and then Luminosity won the last 2 rounds to secure the map. And then SSG mopped them on border, so it was looking pretty good, honestly. But then Luminosity, I guess they're just pretty solid on Skyscraper. They get the win here. They got that win during the round robin against the likes of M80, which was an impressive one, especially in hindsight with how good M80 are looking now. And Foltz does show up here, not that it really matters, but a little bit of redemption for him and J9O. Second best player, Silent shows up, Eddie, Wi-Fi, and nobody doing really too badly in the lobby in general. The worst player on KD going -7, but at least he had the 3-1 entry to make up for a little bit, and yeah, at least a pretty reasonable game. Forrest with 16 entry engagements. Insane. Ashton had the most on his team in like most games, but this is crazy. Maybe this really speaks to how unserious Space Station were taking this if they let Forrest get this many. He has been known to step forward a little bit and take a lot of entry engagements, but that's actually an insane number. And yeah, that does it for the game. So let's just take a look at a few stats here. We have the leaderboards, and yeah, we see Spoit on top, rating and KD. Do keep in mind, some players got to play more maps because of how the playoffs worked out and whatever. So in terms of stats like differential, he has an advantage here. Pamazoo goes +15, almost twice as high of a number as all of the other players, so really good. Again, not a like stellar performance from him this stage, but stellar, I guess, in terms of entry at the very least, which is his role. Spoit tops the cost, and then we see 4 of the Beast Coast players all right here. And Kino, yeah, half those clutches came in that last game, so kind of whatever. Diffuser, Nave, Gaveni, Silent, and did any other players get 5 clutches? No, just them. So they were sort of the real top clutchers. But Kino also topping the plants. Again, he maybe played more maps than a lot of players, but still 5 more. It's not like he had just 1 more than Dream or something. And I guess you can see the rest of the results here. I'll scroll through this and you can pause and look at anything if you want to. Who ended up at the bottom? It was Forrest and Iconic in some order at the very bottom coming into the playoffs, but it ends up, yeah, they at least pass, or no, excuse me. That's not sorted by rating. Yaga ends up on the bottom. Iconic came up a little bit, passing a few of the lowest players, but still, Iconic and Forrest both ending in the bottom 5 is pretty brutal. Ashen and J9O, and I guess even Foltz were pretty reasonable, all at least 1.0 ratings. A few of the players on their team really hurting them stats-wise. And let's see, Wikipedia. Oh, no. Map stats. I forgot to do this last time. I had to splice it in. Clubhouse is the most played map by quite a bit. It's it's a classic map. Everybody loves some Clubhouse. Slightly defender-sided. Bank and Oregon and Chalet, Consulate. A lot of maps with similar number of plays if you ignore Clubhouse. But Bank, slightly attacker-sided. Oregon, fairly defender-sided. Chalet, slightly defender-sided. Consulate, very defender-sided. Border, slightly attacker-sided. Nighthaven, Cafe, Skyscraper, all defender-sided. So I guess Nighthaven and Skyscraper and Consulate, the three most defender-sided, and how many? Only two attacker-sided maps, which I think makes sense. We'll see what happens at the major, and especially in like phase 2 and phase 3 of the major, if things even out a little bit. But I think you can generally expect at like outside of the top tier of play right now, it's almost always going to be defender-sided, because I mean that's just how the meta sort of is. Okay, now on to Wikipedia. Here are the results of the round robin, and just in case you wanted a reminder. Beast Coast, they did go on to place first. They made the major. M80 here in third made the major, and Dark Zeros also made the major. But again, Oxygen, Luminosity, Space Station, Wildcard, Sonics, these 5 teams still have an opportunity to make the major, as well as 3 teams that came from the open qualifiers. And then here's the bracket in case if you want to see the visualization. So yeah, M80 beating Space Station in the first round, Dark Zero beating Luminosity, and then M80 claims the major spot over Oxygen, Beast Coast over Dark Zero, and then Dark Zero knocks Oxygen into that LCQ, claiming the final major spot from the stage proper, and M80 losing to Beast Coast, granting Beast Coast that first place spot in the league that they worked very hard. And then in this sort of consolation match, Luminosity takes down Space Station 2-1. And was there something else I wanted to look at here? I feel like I mentioned I was going to look at something and I think I forgot, but oh well. As far as the placements go, here are how teams placed for the stage. Oxygen is here in 4th, so they'll get this many SI points, I guess. But again, the 4th team going to the major is not necessarily Oxygen. It could be them, but it could be one of 7 other teams as well. And let me just take a quick glance. I feel like I feel really badly that I might have said that I was going to look at something here and then I'm forgetting. But oh yeah, here's the money. I think this was it. $62,000 going to Beast Coast, whereas M80 only 30,000. So it's fairly uniform going down here. I guess 3rd and 4th even getting the same amount, and it's pretty reasonable if you get like 3rd, 4th, 5th, similar-ish kinds of money, even 2nd, but there is this massive jump to 1st place. So Beast Coast, they were playing for the glory, they were playing for the seeding, they were playing for a few SI points, but maybe most of all, they were playing for $32,000, and they earned it. M80 got the floor mopped with them to an extent. I guess the second map was close, but overall, Beast Coast took it pretty handily. And I think that's going to do it. So yeah, let me know what you thought of the stage. Maybe I'll do one last video for the LCQ, but I don't think I have too much planned upcoming. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe I'll do something a little bit different. The recaps are... I kept up with NA. I guess that's all that can be asked of me. But anyways, yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what maybe you'd like to see in the future. If you have any ideas for cool videos I could do outside of the ones I normally do. And with all that being said, I will catch you guys next time.